All right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called Theater of Blood, spelled Tre at the end. U.S. title is spelled as Theater of Blood, but it's spelled differently with a Ter at the end of theater. So there's a subtle difference between British theater and U.S. theater spelling. With the R after the T in the British spelling and the R after the E in the U.S. spelling. I'm giving this 5 out of 5 stars, just like I remembered. Great stuff. This was supposed to be like a Dr. Phibes Part 3 with Robert Fuest directing, but he didn't want to be known typecast as the director of Vincent Price killing a bunch of people. Vincent Price has reserved a seat for you in the Theater of Blood, spelled Tre. And then there's a skull with a skeleton hand that's holding a ticket that says Theater of Blood. Vincent Price is holding a skull with 2 daggers in the eye sockets. A headless person sitting in the theater chair. And a bunch of other movie critics sitting in theater chairs with blood splattered all over the place. This is great. Movie poster. But Vincent Price looks like Baron Munchausen. Whoever drew Vincent Price didn't do a very good rendition on the movie poster. Theater of Blood is a 1973 British horror comedy film directed by Douglas Hickox and starring Vincent Price and Diana Rigg. Production companies Harbor Productions and Cinnamon Productions, distributed by United Artists. Release dates March 16, 1973 in Toronto, April 5th, 1973 in the U.S., and June 7th, 1973 in the U.K. Running time 104 minutes, country UK, language English, box office $1 million in U.S. Canada rentals. Okay. After being humiliated by members of the Theatre Critics Guild at an awards ceremony, Shakespearean actor Edward Kendall Sheridan, Lionheart, is seen committed suicide by diving into the Thames from a great height. He survives and he is rescued by a group of vagrants. 2 years later, beginning on the Ides of March, Lionheart sets out to exact vengeance against the critics who failed to acclaim his genius, killing them one by one in ways very similar to murder scenes in the season of William Shakespeare's plays that he last performed. Before each murder, Lionheart recites the critics' damning review of his performance in the role. The first critic, George Maxwell, is repeatedly stabbed by a mob of murderous homeless people, suggested by the murder of Julius Caesar and Julius Caesar. The second, Hector Snipe, is impaled with a spear, and his body is dragged away to appear at Maxwell's funeral tied to a horse's tail, replicating the murder of Hector in Troilus and Cressida. The third, Horace Sprout, is decapitated while sleeping as Cloten in Cymbeline. The fourth critic, Trevor Dickman, has his heart cut out by Shylock in The Merchant of Venice. the play being rewritten so that Antonio is forced to repay his debt with a pound of flesh. The fifth, Oliver Larding, is drowned in a barrel of wine, as is George Plantagenet, Duke of Clarence, and Richard III. For the next play, Romeo and Juliet, Lionheart lures the critic Peregrine Devlin to a fencing gymnasium where he reenacts a sword fight from the play. He badly wounds Devlin, but he chooses not to kill him at this juncture. The sixth critic to die, Solomon Pasaltry, an obsessively jealous man, murders his wife Massey, believing her to be unfaithful, as portrayed in Othello. Although Pasaltry survives, his actions lead to his imprisonment, and he will likely die in prison. The seventh critic to die, Miss Chloe Moon, is electrocuted to replicate the burning of Joan of Arc in Henry VI, Part 1. The eighth critic to die, flamboyant gourmand Meredith Meridew, is force-fed pies made from flesh of his two toy poodles until he chokes to death, replicating the demise of Queen Tamora in Titus Andronicus. It is revealed that Lionheart is being aided by his adoring daughter, Edwina. She kidnaps Devlin and she brings him to the theater, where Lionheart tells him to give him the ward or he will be blinded with red-hot daggers, as happens to Gloucester in King Lear. He refuses, but the contraption meant to blind him gets stuck. Lionheart sets the fire to the theater. In the confusion, one of the vagrants kills Edwina by striking her in the head with the award statuette, unwittingly casting her in the role of Cordelia, Lear's youngest daughter. Lionheart retreats, carrying her body to the roof and delivering Lear's final monologue before the roof caves in, setting him ablaze and sending him to his death. Like other movies in the last years of his life, Hopkins was dubbed by his friend Charles Gray. Both Hawkins and Dennis Price died within a few months of the film's release. We're talking about Jack Hodgson, who played Solomon Pasaltry. Okay. The film was originally to be titled Much Ado About Murder. Robert Fuest, director of The Abominable Dr. Phibes, 1971, and its sequel, Dr. Phibes Rises Again, 1972, was originally offered this film to direct, but Fuest turned it down on the grounds of not wishing to be typed as the guy who makes Vincent Price theme killing movies. Director Douglas Hillcock said, "The cast was so good that all I had to do as a director was open the dressing room door and let the cameras roll." It's kind of ironic too that Vincent Price is killing a bunch of Shakespearean actors in real life. Vincent Price, who had nothing to do with Shakespeare during his career, is suddenly killing off all these actors who had everything to do with Shakespeare in their careers. Theater Blood was filmed entirely on location. Lionheart's hideout, the Burbage Theater, was the Putney Hippodrome, which was built in 1906, but had been vacant and dilapidated for more than 10 years before it was used in the film. It was demolished in 1975 to make way for housing. Yeah, low-income housing. Good luck with that. Not in my backyard. Lionheart's tomb is a Sevier family monument in Kensal Green Cemetery, showing a seated man, one hand placed on the head of a woman kneeling in adoration, while the other holds the Bible. Its pages open to a passage from the Gospel of Luke. The monument was altered for the film by substituting plaster masks of Price and Rigg for the real faces, replacing the Bible with the volume of Shakespeare, and adding Lionheart's name and dates. Peregrine Devlin's Tameside apartment is the penthouse flat at Alembic House, now known as Peninsula Heights, on the Albert Embankment. At the time of filming, the property belonged to the actor and film producer Stanley Baker. It is now the London home of novelist and disgraced politician Geoffrey Archer. When pre-production commenced, Coral Brown insisted that she would wear only clothing designed by Jean Muir. The film's costume designer, Michael Baldwin, informed Brown that the budget could not possibly stretch to designer clothing for any of the cast. Baldwin was surprised and angered to get a call from Douglas Hickox after he had a meeting with Brown, telling him that she could have the dresses she requested, increasing the budget solely to accommodate her demands. Baldwin was further infuriated to discover that Brown kept all the dresses after filming wrapped. Young Man Among Roses, the miniature featured in the introduction and used as the model for the Critics' Award statuette, is by the Elizabethan portraitist Nicholas Hilliard. The film was reportedly a favorite of Vincent Price's, as he always wanted a chance to act in Shakespeare. Before or after each death in the film, Lionheart recites passages of Shakespeare, giving Price an outlet to deliver such speeches as Hamlet's third soliloquy, "To be or not to be, that is a question." Mark Antony's eulogy for Caesar from Julius Caesar. "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Now is the winter of our discontent," from the beginning of Richard III, and the raving of King Lear after the death of his faithful daughter. Diana Rigg regarded Theatre Blood as her best film. The film is sometimes considered to be a spoof or homage of the abominable Dr. Phibes. Similarities with the earlier film include a protagonist who is presumed dead and is seeking revenge, 9 intended victims, one of whom works directly with Scotland Yard and survives, theme murders rooted in literature, and a young female sidekick. Theatre of Blood maintains a whopping 88% fresh approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes from 40 critics, with the critics' consensus deliciously campy and wonderfully funny. Theatre of Blood features Vincent Price at his melodramatic best. This is in my top 10 movies of all time, along with The Abominable Dr. Phibes. I've always loved this movie. Great stuff. The the image that keeps appearing in the film is the young man among roses, circa 1585 to 1595, Victoria and Albert Museum. It is believed to be a portrait of Robert Devereux, second Earl of Essex. Excuse me. The Monthly Film Bulletin wrote, although his schematic vengeance invites comparison with that of Abominable Dr. Phibes, Edward Lionheart happily turns out to be a villain of infinitely higher caliber. Douglas Hickok's direction is fairly adroit. He makes effective use of locations, and a constantly moving camera prevents the brazen theatricality of the whole scheme being too overt. He also sustains a reasonable amount of tension by keeping the murders on the level of grand guignol rather than farce. But in order to sustain our interest, it would have been necessary to reserve some surprises for the last third of the film. And here, both script and direction begin to flag. The killing of Meredith Meridew, Robert Morley, by forcing him to eat his pet poodles remains merely unpleasant, though Lionheart has by this time become such a generally sympathetic character that the conventional denouement is both tedious and irritating. I disagree with that. I thought the last two kills were the best. Meredith, Meridew, this is your dish. Where are my doggy woggies? And then you've got the hello, I'm Butch. Don't touch. Butch knows best. Indeed, Price's superb antics have so effectively upstaged the other performers that the last remaining critic's refusal to alter his original judgment emerges as an act of crass stupidity rather than courage. The Los Angeles Times called it quite possibly the best horror film Vincent Price has ever made. Certainly, it affords him the best role he has ever had in the genre, a triumph of witty, stylish, grand guignol. It allows Price to range richly between humor and pathos. The film was adopted for the stage by the British company Improbable, with Jim Broadbent playing Edward Lionheart and Rachel Sterling, Diana Rigg's daughter, playing Lionheart's daughter. The play differs from the film in that the critics are British newspapers, including The Guardian and The Times, and the only set is an abandoned theater. The play is again set in the 1970s rather than being updated. Most of the secondary characters were excised, including police, and the number of deaths reduced. The killings based on Othello and Cymbeline are omitted as they would have taken place outside the theater and rely on secondary characters such as the critics' wives. The name of Lionheart's daughter is changed from Edwina to Miranda to enhance the Shakespearean influence. The adoption ran in London at the National Theatre between May and September 2005, and it received mixed reviews. Diana Rigg introduced Vincent Price to his future wife, Coral Brown, during the making of the film. Brown recalled in a television documentary, Caviar to the General, in 1990, that she had not wanted to make one of those scary Vincent Price movies, but she was persuaded to take the part of Chloe Moon by her friends Robert Morley and Michael Hordam, acknowledging that the film thus had a very strong cast. Rigg was unaware that Price was married. Adrian's in the chat room. He says, I had this on VHS back in the day. You and me both. Theater of Blood, 1973. Spelled T-E-R or T-R-E, depending on which country you're in. 1973, rated R, 1 hour, 44 minutes. It wasn't too long. I wanted more. I wanted it to be 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's a whopping 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb, 13,000 ratings, great movie poster. A Shakespearean actor takes poetic revenge on the critics who denied him recognition. I've got to post the movie and the trailer in the description. That's one thing I forgot to do. More like this, The Abominable Dr. Phibbs Madhouse, which is now number 3 on my list. Mask of the Red Death, which I don't particularly care for, and Dr. Phibbs Rises Again. Another great flick. Considered by Vincent Price to be his personal favorite of all his films, followed closely by The Abominable Dr. Phibbs. This is why I put The Abominable Dr. Phibbs and Theater of Blood in my top 10 movies of all time, because they are the 2 greatest Vincent Price films. Horace Sprout's decapitated head rolls over when the maid discovers him. In the next scene, it is impaled on a milk bottle at Devlin's front door. It has been said this is a goof because Lionheart could not have retrieved the head after the maid saw it in the morning, but the head left in the bed was a dummy waxwork head. Lionheart took the real head and put that on a milk bottle at Devlin's front door. Peregrine Devlin is quoted as saying, after receiving Dick Man's heart in a gift box, "It's him, all right. Only Lionheart would have the temerity to rewrite Shakespeare." That's great. Quote, despite the film's comedic nature, the original UK theatrical version of it was cut by the BBFC, and some of the close-up shots from the murders of Merridew and Miss Chloe Moon were slightly trimmed. All later home video and DVD releases were uncut. This was featured in VIP Schaukel, episode number 9.2 in 1979. Here's another flattering review from somebody named Lindy on IMDb. The date of the review is October 30th, 2004. There's no rating attached to it, but the title of the review on IMDb is British at its best. The film is frightening, funny, stomach churning, and Vincent Price at his menacing best. If you get a chance to do watch it with actors like Robert Morley, Jack Hawkins, Diana Dorr, Arthur Lowe, Diana Rigg, and the way he plots his revenge for their critics of his acting, which destroyed his career, the Robert Morley one especially. I will never forget that scene. If I knew this film was on DVD, I would love to have it, but it's one of those classics that won't be on TV much now unless they have a Vincent Price season or something. I remember sitting there with my family and tucking into a box of chocolates after the Robert Morley killing, at least to say we got turned of them, but we fall about laughing about it now. So there's Theater Blood. Highly recommended. Check it out. I'll post the links to the free movie and the trailer in the description. No sign of Adrian anymore. He just posted one chat and he gone. All right. First on the list is Silent Night, Bloody Night, 1972. Hot Shots Part Deuce, 1993. And Madhouse, 1973. Another Vincent Price movie, the only one that I haven't seen in the 4 that I've been reviewing this Christmas week. That is the only one that I have not seen. 30 years ago, 25 years ago, whatever it was. So I did the Abominable Dr. Phibbs Rises Again, Theater Blood. All three of those were some of the my top favorite movies that I saw from 25 to 30 years ago. I don't think I ever reviewed them on either Yahoo or um, oh, and I forgot Witchfinder General. So actually, there are five. Okay, Witchfinder General, The Abominable Dr. Phibes, Dr. Phibes Rises Again, Theater Blood, and the fifth one is Madhouse. That's the one I haven't seen. Number 5. All right. So I would say the first four are in my top 20 movies of all time. In particular, The Abominable Dr. Phibes and this one, Theater Blood, are in my top 10. The other two are in my top 10 to 20. 11 to 20, I should say. 11 to 20, sorry. So, great flick, highly recommended. Check it out. Is that Adrian back in the chat room? I'll fix my description box to include a free link. No, he's gone. A free link to the movie, as well as the link to the trailer if I can find it on YouTube later.